On Saturday Night Live this weekend at the news desk there, Seth Meyers at Weekend Update gave an explanation of just how difficult this balancing act is on health care reform. Take a look.
Democrats in the Senate on Wednesday reached a tentative compromise on the health care bill that would pull out the public option in favor of a private insurance plan. They also pulled out federal funding for abortion coverage. Then they pulled out a provision to import drugs from Canada. Then they pulled, oh no, Jenga! Health care reform Jenga.
Oh, and the image of collapse in our heads with that one. Christina Bellantoni joining us now from Talking Points Memo. And Christina, let's start with Joel Lieberman. That announcement came after Seth Meyers had some fun with the fact that this seemed to be falling apart. But if Joel Lieberman isn't on board for this compromise, is the compromise worth anything at all?
Probably not. I mean, this is a huge deal. I agree with you, David. I think that this is a big kind of game changer. And this is why I think you're hearing a lot more from Democrats talking about the good things that are in the bill. Forget this big public option fight. We've got lots of, strong things. This will ensure 30 million Americans. You're hearing this from the White House. You're hearing this from congressional leadership. And I think they may have to really dial it back and have a bare bones health care bill. That's what they can compromise on and say, yeah, we'll add something later.
But, I mean, hearing from Raul Grijalva, I don't know that that is the easiest thing to pass the House. I don't know if Nancy Pelosi has the votes to pass just a bare bones thing, assuming, of course, no Republicans join her, except maybe Representative Gao, who joined her initially.
And I think that's where the rhetoric comes in, right? You kind of call their bluff. Okay, you're a progressive Democrat. Are you really going to vote against something that provides coverage to 30 million people that didn't have it before? Even though you may want better coverage and a more, robust system, are you really going to stop this when we've come so far? I mean, that's definitely the message you're hearing underlying from the White House.
Well, somebody's going to have to go back on their word. There's just no way the votes are there based on the actual statements right now. But let's focus again on Lieberman, though. I mean, he has just played such a huge role in this. It seems often that he wants to put himself in the center of it all. He's succeeded in doing that once again. But at what point, if you're Harry Reid, do you just give up on him?
I think that a lot of people wanted to see Harry Reid give up on him a long time ago. I mean, especially you're hearing from a lot of progressives saying this is somebody that we allowed to stay in the caucus. We allowed him to keep the chairmanship, kind of under the understanding he'd be with us on everything except defense issues. Well, that, more and more and more comes out. Obviously you had the election issue, campaigning against President Obama and helping Sarah Palin prepare for debates. And I mean, just every little thread you pull, there's very little he's there with the Democrats on. So, Harry Reid doesn't have a lot of other options.
Right, I was just about to say, I mean, the math is the math. Olympia Snowe has already expressed also opposition to this idea of the Medicare buy-in. So it makes me think if Lieberman is really out of the calculation altogether and Reid desperately does need Snowe, it brings me back to, are we going to head back to a public option with a trigger that is not there initially just to win her vote? Might that still be the fallback option here?
Sure, absolutely. Or not one at all. You might essentially assure that you get her if you just kind of leave out all those details and just say, well, we'll revisit this.
Yeah, and then you got the problems in the House to deal with, as we heard.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the latest on the economy. The president has the heads of the major banks in there for the kind of come to Jesus moment. Let's get tough with the bankers. These folks are not traditionally his allies, but it seems like there's a public component to this as well as the policy component of actually trying to see lending.
Yeah, we've heard this before, though, right? I mean, he's talked tough to Wall Street. He's, had people there at the White House where he told them, his tough message, and you're not seeing a lot of movement. I think the big issue that they're really going to push is starting to get small business lending going, and most economists agree, that will really help the economy if they do that. So I think you've got, the banks themselves signaling that they want to work with the White House, they want to listen, they want to, quote unquote, step up. I think that remains determined if they actually deliver.
Right, because it seems that the larger goal here is not to score the populist rhetoric points where Obama's done that, like you said, for a year. Barbara Walters' interview a year ago saying they shouldn't take their bonuses. He actually needs the substance to happen at this point. So it may not just be tough talk. He needs to find a solution to get that credit flowing. I haven't seen what that solution is yet from the White House.
Right, and I think that somebody said this yesterday on This Week, that there's not real sense of urgency in the tone from everybody except Obama. You see his advisors out there, and they're making fairly rosy predictions for next year, and I think that a lot of congressional Democrats are banking on that as well. If unemployment goes down, if we start to see some of this, kickstarting, then we're going to be fine in the midterms. So, but where are the advisors and the people that are actually making this policy, saying we got to make this happen now?
You get the sense of real frustration from President Obama himself when he talks about these fat cats in the 60 Minutes interview. He's had this talk before, and they haven't listened.
Right, and he actually just told Oprah, right, that he was, the one time he raised his voice recently was about some economic number. I mean, I think that there definitely is, how could you not be frustrated?
And do you think, in watching the 60 Minutes interview last night, I'm wondering if he's starting to show that frustration on his sleeve a little bit more. I don't know if he just needs the Christmas break or whatever, but are you getting a sense that that metaphor of all those planes circling and not being able to come in for a landing, that it's starting to get to him in some way?
It's hard to know. I mean, I think it echoes the campaign in a lot of ways, right? We're in Washington looking at all the things that haven't been signed, sealed, and delivered yet. They look at it as this bigger picture of, we're making all these movements and there's been so much historic change. Why is everybody kind of griping about my policies? And I mean, a B+ is a pretty high grade to give yourself, I'd say.
Although not one that he said if Malia brought home, apparently that wasn't okay. He had said previously, you need A's, and then he gave himself a B+.
These Harvard kids and their grade inflation, you know what it's all about. Christina Bellantoni from Talking Points Memo, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. That does it for this edition of Top Line. Be sure to click us on again tomorrow.
And it's twitter.com/The Note to keep the conversation going.
Here's the greatest thing about Talking Points Memo from the weekend, those Michael Steele pictures.